Hello, Ms. Jenkins and Ms. Harrison.
Oh, good evening, Riverside.
Good evening.
Yeah, you all have come in since I initially spoke.
Oh, okay.
Do we have everybody? Is Mr. Williams there, but hasn't come in yet?
No,
You just walking in.
I
oh,
think
he's
on
walking
his way
in now.
Okay.
Good evening.
It's 5:30 on the head.
I gotta hop in this meeting. Bye.
Oh, everyone is here now.
All right. The board room was muted. I was waiting for it to become unmuted. All right. Let's see. Everybody ready in the boardroom?
Yes.
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 All right. Is everybody ready online?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Hale, Ms. Bird Robinson?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Kitty, it is now 5:32. Let us call the meeting, this special call meeting to order for Welland City School Board of Education. Our meeting tonight, of course, we have one topic that we must address and talk about, and that is our reopening plan to go in to schools, how we're going to do that. This is a follow-up meeting, of course, from last Thursday, and some things that were going on that we have been made aware of, and how it reflects and relates to Welland City School District. That is our topic of discussion for tonight, and we do not have a formal agenda as we would have, but that is the topic of the meeting, reopening of schools. Is there anything else that anybody would desire to discuss for tonight? Board members?
Not me, just. the
All
open-
right. Okay. Then I would just,
Riverside.
yes.
There is
Yeah.
something, well, I guess I would have to wait until we have a closed session. So we can proceed with what you have.
Okay, yeah, if it's anything, closed session material, of course, we'd have to wait until we have our closed session later on this month.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, would someone motion for our meeting tonight that our meeting would be for the topic of discussion for reopening of schools?
Make a motion to
It would be to approve our meeting
I
tonight
have a,
for discussion of reopening schools.
I'm sorry. My mind went blank.
That's all right.
I make a motion to approve tonight's board meeting and the topic of reopening schools.
Second.
Second.
Thank you so much. The motion has been moved and properly second that we will have our meeting tonight with our discussion to reopen schools. You've heard that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, would you all show forth now by your voice vote? Mrs. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Jenkins,
Aye.
Ms. Hale,
Aye.
Ms. Bird Robinson, Ms. Kimberly.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and OD Sykes, aye. Let the record reflect our meeting tonight unanimous vote that we would have our open discussion about reopening schools. And of course, as I forestated, that is our topic of discussion for tonight. Last board meeting, on our consent agenda, we did approve to go back into schools. And that was simply because Senate Bill 37 was on the table. Of course, immediately after our board meeting on Friday, I believe it was, the governor did veto Senate Bill 37, which basically made any decision that we made as the Weldon City School Board of Education, it was basically nullified. It became null and void. Well, there was an attempt to overthrow the governor's veto on Monday of this week. That vote failed by one to override the governor's veto. But the compromise was that out of all of the LEAs in the state of North Carolina, there were only 5 LEAs that had not offered in-person learning. And I will name all 5 of those. Halifax County Schools was one. Hertford County Schools was one. Cumberland County Schools was one. Durham County Schools was one. And of course, Weldon City Schools was the 5th district. Our attorney did receive a communication from the State Board of Education's lawyer, and also the State Board of Education contacted Dr. Congleton. And basically the 5 districts within the state of North Carolina that had not offered any type of in-person learning, they were looking at us under a microscope. and basically, we had the decision to either say we would entertain some type of in-person learning, or it would be left up basically to the state. And the State Board of Education wanted the word of the 5 districts that they would entertain some type of in-person learning before the month of March was out. With that being said, and I know this is kind of long, but I'm just trying to bring us up to where we are tonight. Attorney Malone did contact me and Dr. Congleton this week, Monday, before they actually were going back into session in the General Assembly to override the veto. And there had to be some compromising done. So when Attorney Malone.
Before you get to that part, can I just add just like small bit of clarification?
Sure.
Everything that you said is correct. The only thing I want to clarify is that two things. One, what we heard from the state board was that there was compromise conversations. I don't know that when the override vote occurred, that the compromise was that everybody understood there to be a compromise. Because I mean, I think that the idea was that they were not going to attempt the override vote is what we were being told. So when they attempted the override vote, it got a little confusing because we were thinking that they were not going to have an override vote. And then we then talked again on Tuesday after the override vote failed. And we were told again, kind of by the state board, well, even though that's where things stand, you guys the 5 school systems are still being watched carefully to figure out whether or not the legislature needs to re-engage in this process. And the only caveat that I wanted to add in is yesterday afternoon, late, we got word that I think Berger said the Senate may attempt, and we're personally aren't sure how this works within Robert's rules, but they may attempt a reconsideration of the override vote because one of the members who actually had originally signed on to the bill was not present for the veto override. So it would be the equivalent of a motion to reconsider. But it's unclear within parliamentary procedure whether the losing side can do that, if that makes sense. So that's a little up in the air, but it doesn't change your overall story and what you've described. But I did just factually, it's gotten a little quirky because we were under the impression that this would all kind of go away based on what these 5 districts did. And it's not 100% clear that it's all going to go away, although that's definitely you're being watched. There's no doubt about that. So anyway, I just wanted to add that bit of clarification before you went to the next part.
Okay, thank you so much. Everybody together where we are right now.
Yes.
All right. And basically with that being said, Attorney Malone asked me as the elected chairperson for our board, is that something that would be likely that we would do? And basically the narrative that was painted to us, that was to me and Dr. Congleton, if we did not at least talk about and offer some type of in-person schooling, basically the state was going to do it for us. And if we want to control the narrative of how we're going to offer in-person schooling, that's something that we have to basically do. And so I told Dr. Congleton to make sure that he let the state board know, and Attorney Malone, he let the attorneys know that we were having a special call meeting tonight, and that would be on the table of how we would do in-person learning. And I say that, board members, because this was basically the 11th hour. I mean, when we actually talked on Monday, they were getting ready to go into session maybe a couple of hours later. And so Attorney Malone had to have something to share with the lawyers for the state board and with the state board itself, that we basically would entertain some type of in-person learning. So I say that, board members, if you know anybody has any problem with that, I take full responsibility of that, simply because if I had not consented to that in some respect, we basically would have been told by the state how in-person learning is going to have to take place, and we basically wouldn't have had any say in the equation. So if we're going to control how we do in-person learning, we had to make that step. I had to make that step in that respect. So the governance of how we do it, it basically would remain with Weldon City Schools Board of Education and not the state, because it was only 5 LEAs in the state that had not offered any type of in-person learning.
And if I could just add just
Sure.
1 or 2 more sentences. That is 100% correct. I do want to be clear, though, that what we literally communicated to the state board's lawyer was that the board would be considering it, and that we felt it was likely that
Correct.
they would adopt a version of in-person, but we made it clear that we were not that the chair was not guaranteeing that there would be 4 votes for it, but that we felt likely.
Right.
And then again, I just want to restate that it is still possible that whatever you may do, that because of the way that we're hearing weird murmurings, that the legislature may still get involved. But we do believe that you're adopting a version of in-person learning, so you could not be on a list that have not done this, is in your best interest, somewhat regardless, because you don't want to be, if it's just 5 school districts, 1 of 3, 4, whatever, that have not gone back to some version of in-person. And the only other thing I would add, I'm sorry, is that of the 5, Halifax, Cumberland have definitely agreed to a version of in-person. Hertford, we are expecting to, because of the call that Dr. Congleton got from a Hertford Board of Education member who is on the state board. And Durham met last night, and unfortunately, I have not seen an email on what they did. But they were supposed to be seriously considering some version of in-person last night.
Yeah, I think they did. I think they approved
Okay.
some version of the in-person
Okay.
learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And,
So it's probably now, not knowing what Hertford has done, it may just be down to 2 school systems today.
Right, because Halifax County, I understand, approved a form of in-person on Monday night at their board meeting, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Halifax did for sure.
Yeah.
Halifax and Cumberland have definitely, those are the ones that the state board lawyer reported to me on Tuesday-ish, that they definitely had approved. So we are kind of down to, it's just a matter of what you and Hertford have done now.
Right, right. So board members, that's why we are here tonight to discuss how we're going to do our in-person learning, because of course, what was approved according to Senate Bill 37, and because it was vetoed and the veto was not overridden, technically, my understanding, that bill is dead as of now. And Attorney Malone, if that is correct, please.
I mean, it is so it is supposed to be dead. But again, there's some weirdness that somebody in the legislature thinks they can reconsider it. So it's certainly possible, I guess, even though it's not 100% clear what the, how they get there under their rules. But it is technically dead in any other year, in any normal situation. But even if it's dead, it doesn't prevent some, the House or the Senate from introducing a new bill to do nearly the same thing.
Right.
So, and there was some conversation that, and all the time that they could spend trying to work through the Roberts rules issues to reconsider this, they can just draft a new bill and start over and get it through quickly. So I do think that you should just consider that still hanging over you, be it Senate Bill 37 or some other legislation. Again, you don't have to go back to in-person, but people are watching. Just you should know that for sure.
Right. So that's where we are, board members. Ms. Jenkins. Go ahead, Ms. Jenkins. Yes, ma'am.
Reverend, now let me understand this clearly now. Are you saying that we have to send our children back to school? Is that what I'm understanding? Or the ones that want to go back? I mean, what are you saying? I mean,
basically, we have to, well, not that we have to, because we can choose to absolutely not do that, but the repercussions of making that decision, we don't know. So basically, what the state is saying to us is it would be in our best interest to offer some in-person learning. Now, the parents will still have the choice of whether their children would come back or not. But we as the school district have to offer some type of in-person instruction for those that want to come back. But parents can still make the choice for their children to remain totally virtual or to send them back. And we as the board would determine what that would look like, sending them back, what type of model we would use. And that would only be for the students that wanted to come back. That wouldn't be for those that did not want to, because the last time, and we're going to have a brief presentation from Dr. Congleton on the hard numbers. When we met last week, the numbers were 57% did not want to return to in-person learning, and 43% wanted to return in-person learning. So I think Dr. Congleton has the hard numbers now of how many students we're actually talking about that is within that 43% out of the, I'll say 700 students were roughly that we have in the district. How many of those students wanted to come back in person? And it would be broken down by school, the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school, and RVEC, if you want to say that as well. But it would be in our best interest, according to the state, that we offer some type of in-person, but the parents would still have the choice of whether they wanted to do all remote or in person.
Reverend, well, I guess Dr. Carrington, I need to, are we ready with the guidelines, what the state saying that we have to in our schools? Are we ready for the kids, for them to come back to school?
Yes, ma'am, we are ready and we are prepared, because we've been working on this, nonstop for a long time, because we knew that at some point we were gonna have to bring them back, and we didn't want to be scrambling around at the last minute. So we have things in place to meet the guidelines that's being required. And one thing to consider is that probably half or less than half of the kids will elect to come back. So that reduces your numbers tremendously. And also the fact that we have small numbers anyway, which we'll show you a little later on when we do the presentation. But in terms of meeting the requirements that the state say that we must meet, yes, ma'am, we have purchased all kinds of stuff. We got all kinds of things in place. We have thermometers. We have directional things that we put on the floor to indicate 6 feet difference. We have PPE, all types of personal protective equipment, masks for everybody, shields for desk. We have really gone all out. And also, in addition to that, we have equipped each classroom, or in the process of equipping each classroom, to be able to have remote instruction simultaneously with face-to-face instruction. Because depending upon what the board decides, we could have a situation where we have a number of kids that are present, physically present in the classroom, and a number of kids at home remote. So we'll have set up similar to what we have here in the boardroom, where the teachers will be able to work with those kids that's present, and also work with those kids that will be on the screen, which they have been accustomed to doing there for the last year or so. So yes, ma'am, to answer your question, I feel confident that we are ready and that we can meet the requirements that the state laid out.
Dr. Congleton,
Yes, ma'am.
what about hot water? Is hot water available for the students and staff?
Hot water?
Yes.
Well, I don't know, whatever the situation was previously or had been all along. I don't think that we've done any additional thing to provide hot water if it wasn't already there, So if they had hot water before, then they still have it. But well, we've not added anything extra that I know of. Ms. Snipes, are you aware of anything that we've done?
Not with the water.
Not in terms of hot water. But we do have plenty of disinfectant and those kinds of things that students would need when they go in the bathroom to wash their hands and that sort of thing. So if they had hot water in there before, they do, but if they didn't have it before, then nothing new has been added along that line. But they have plenty of disinfectant.
What about our custodian? Do they have everything they need to sanitize, to keep
Yes, ma'am.
everything sanitized?
Yes, ma'am.
And we are sure that they're doing it? I mean, I know we're not sure, but we have to make sure that they are doing it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We feel very confident about that.
Okay.
We have supplies and stuff coming in every day to help with that. In fact, we had a load of stuff to come in today that will help with the sanitizing and all of that. So,
Okay.
I mean, these are wonderful questions and excellent questions, and I'm glad that you all are asking them. But I'm also glad to be able to say that we are, prepared, to be able to meet the challenge.
Okay, good, good.
Well,
And-
what about the custodians? I mean, do we have enough, to keep the building, all that cleaning and, they explain that?
Well, we can always use additional help. I'm not, no question about that. However, with the buildings being closed on Friday, with whatever proposal we put out there, all of them, the one thing that all of them have in common is the fact that we want these buildings closed on Friday. When I say closed, I mean no students there on Friday, so that they can do a thorough sanitizing and so forth, just like they've been doing. But then there are also other protocols in place, during each day where they clean it. But the deep cleaning takes place on that Friday when there's nobody in the buildings.
And Dr. Congleton, let me say this in connection or in collaboration with what Mrs. Harrison and Mrs. Jenkins has said. We need to ensure, we need to make sure without any hesitation, any reservation, that these schools are being sanitized on a daily basis, and then the deep clean on Friday. We have to stay on top of that. No ifs, ands, buts about it. And I guess I'm saying it in this respect. I think the board would feel very comfortable. I know I would, if there was a daily check-in or every other day check-in, before that deep clean is done, to ensure that, the sanitation is being done for everybody's comfort, in that respect. I really think we need to look at that in some way, form, or fashion. And I'm not saying that they're not doing it,
Right.
but I know you are trusting the word that is given to you, that is said that it is being done. And when our students come back, I would feel a whole lot more comfortable that you actually saw that for yourself. And when we asked you from the board, that you observed that, you knew that.
Absolutely.
Do we have to vote on this?
Also about the,
Hold on, Ms. Bird Robinson. I know you couldn't see Ms. Jenkins' hand up, but she was,
Oh, I
I'll come
didn't.
right back to you. Hold on one second. Go ahead, Ms. Jenkins.
I said, do we have to vote on this, the going back to school? Do we have to vote on it? That's what I'm asking.
It would be in our best interest to vote now. However it turns out, that's the way it turns out. We know the majority would rule, but however it is, we have to take a vote. And basically, board members, the narrative is, if we don't make the decision for our children to go back and say how we want them to go back, we would actually run the risk, as Attorney Malone said, of the General Assembly either taking up Senate Bill 37 again, which wouldn't give you a choice. Then you would have to do in-person learning, and the state would lay it all out how it's to be done, or the possibility of them putting a new bill, which would in turn do the same thing. So, we can either make the choice as well and City School Board to control the narrative of how our students would do in person, or the state could very well do it for us. And I don't think we as the board would want the state to tell us how our students are to come back, because we as the board, we're in the community, and we know. And it's almost like a catch I don't want to say a catch-22, but it's almost like you're in between a rock and a hard place, because if you don't do something, there are repercussions. And if you do something, you know, there's going to be concern. But I think the path of least resistance is that we as Weldon Board decide how we want the students to come in, rather than it being dictated to us by the state.
Okay.
Did I miss Dr. Congleton explaining the return scenario that we discussed?
No, we're going to have a
No, we've not
presentation.
done that yet.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
No, we're going to have a presentation. I was just trying to
Right.
get the questions out of the way. So when Dr. Congleton went with his presentation, then, you know, we would have follow-up questions. Mrs. Bird Robinson.
Yes, I can't even remember what I was gonna ask right now, but we can keep going and then it'll come back to me.
Okay, all right. Mr. Williams or Miss Kimberly Robinson or Miss Hale, do you all have any questions or comments before we go into the presentation?
I want to wait for the pre.
No,
I
sir.
remember what it is.
Okay. Mr. Williams, did you comment?
No, sir.
Oh, okay, all right. Miss
I
Kimberly
have
Robinson.
the question now.
Okay, go ahead, Miss Bird Robinson.
We were talking about the things that the teachers, I heard you say, Dr. Congleton, to Ms. Snipes, some things that they have. Do they have what they need in their classrooms to make sure that, like, in between classes, they can do some kind of cleaning?
Yes, you know, Ms. Bird Robinson and school board, I really believe that our teachers are probably as well equipped, you know, as any teachers are any place, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, I mean, well, I think, which is a good thing, but I can't think of anything, Harley, that I'm aware of that they need that they don't have in order to be able to function properly and provide the best services for our students. So I really think that we are blessed in that way. You know, we have all kinds of technology and, you know, and supplies and different things that the teachers may need, and even some things that they probably don't need. So I don't think having supplies or materials or equipment is really an issue at this point. And so that's just my opinion based on my observations and my conversations with principals and staff. And I would like to add, though, that if someone, you know, feels that they don't have something that they need, then they need to let us know. And then we will do everything that we can to try to accommodate that, because it might be something out there that we're just not aware of. So, you know, communicate with us, you know, let us know what's going on, or communicate with the principal, whatever. And, you know, my door and phone and everything else is wide open for communication. If folks let us know, and it's within reason, makes sense, we'll do what we can to try to help and accommodate.
All right. And board members, let me say this, and I did share this with Dr. Congleton. I think we had some major concerns from the vote that we took that was in the consent agenda last week. That's why we're going to have this presentation tonight, so we can make sure that we're all on the same page, because the other times that we talked about reopening, we did have a presentation. And when we had our board meeting last week, we did not, you know, it was just in the consent agenda. But of course, as I forestated, the motion that we passed as far as the consent agenda was concerned, which was inclusive of a reopening plan, that basically failed. So we're back at the drawing board as far as how we would go in, and we're going to have a brief presentation with that tonight. So if we don't have any additional questions right now, Dr. Congleton, we will yield to you to share with us the hard numbers and just some scenarios of possibility of how we could re-enter.
Okay, and thank you very much. And we do have some numbers and also some possible recommendations. Of course, the final decision, as you all know, will be left up to the board. And Mrs. Snipes is going to lead us through the PowerPoint with the data that we have put in. Ms. Snipes.
Good evening, board chair and board members, as well as
Good
Dr.
evening.
Congleton and those in the community. I'm here to present the information of in-person and remote learning. So first, we will start with just going through the actual plans that the state has previously recommended. We have Plan A, which is minimal social distancing. Plan B, which is moderate social distancing, meaning 6 feet or more. And then Plan C, which is all remote learning. So those are the three plans in which we have been given, based off of our guidance, information in order to operate under as far as serving our students in person. So within that, this is just a highlight, just a quick chart of what we have. You have the Plan A, which is currently based off of the governor's previous executive order, are available for K-5. Plan B is available for 6-12. And within your decision that you make today, we can do Plan A or Plan B. And Plan B could go for all students, which would be K-12, including our pre-K. So here's a breakdown of the actual survey data. The information will be also shared with you so that you can see the actual numbers. Just wanted to highlight, we had a total in our elementary school, 259 students. 200 of those were surveyed, 86 requested face-to-face, and 117 requested virtual. For our middle school, we have 201 students currently enrolled, 153 were surveyed, face-to-face requests were 64, and virtual requests were 89. And at the high schools, we have a total of 282 total students within our high school programming. 80 of those requested face-to-face, and 164 of those high school students requested virtual. So our next information that we will be sharing is our building capacity. This is the building capacity of each of the school buildings. So at the elementary school, WEGA, we have a total enrollment of 259 students, and this is current as of today. The number of classrooms that are used at this time are 23. And based off of the proper 6 feet social distance, each classroom can hold 15 to 18 students. The current building capacity, this means if all students, and we had all of these students in the building, the current building capacity at the elementary school is 329 students. And based off of our Plan B, if we do 50% of the occupancy of that particular building, the building can hold at least 165 students. At the middle school, we have a total enrollment of 201, 22 classrooms currently being in use. Based off of the 6 feet social distancing, each classroom, based on whichever the classroom is, can hold 12 to 13. The total building can hold 635 students. And the actual capacity at 50% is 518.
318.
318, I'm sorry, thank you. God, I have my eyes out here. So at the high school, we have a total enrollment at the high school of 161 students. Current use is 25 classrooms. Based off of the size of the classroom, each classroom can hold 15 to 20 students. The capacity of the building is 619, and at 50% capacity is 310. For RVEC, we have 121 students currently enrolled, 5 classrooms, 10 to 12 students. with the 6 feet social distancing. The building capacity is 142, and the 50% of that is 71. So I just paused just so you can process that a little bit.
Ms. Snipes,
Yes, ma'am.
excuse me, can you go back a few slides before with the face-to-face and the virtual and start with the elementary school again, please?
Sure. Did it get off? Okay, at the elementary school?
Yes.
All right, so the total students at the elementary school, that's 259.
Mhm.
Total surveyed were 200. Face-to-face selections were 86 students. And virtual selections was 117. And then at the middle school, the total number of students is 201. Total survey was 153. Face-to-face requests were 64. And virtual was 89. Yeah.
Okay. And the
Okay,
high
Miss
school?
Miss Snipes,
yes,
before you move away from that slide,
yes,
very quick question. 259 students enrolled at Weldon Elementary. Now you said 200 were surveyed.
yes.
Were the other 59 parents, were they contacted and just didn't respond? Could you all not reach them? What was the scenario there?
Sure. So yes, that is the situation. We have approximately, and this is overall across the district, we have approximately 20% of our students who are currently not engaged. And even after multiple home visits, phone calls, the support of our parent engagement, our social worker, our school leaders, as well as those individual teachers, we were unable to get in touch with due to phone numbers, or people are moved, different types of situations with that last 59 students. And the same is similar for each of our other schools as well.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, because
Sure.
you know, we only have my calculation probably about 77% or 78% of you know, households that responded. And I was just curious, in each scenario, you know, what was the problem? I mean, you know, did they not communicate? Could you not reach them? Or but you laid that out. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anything else on this slide between the elementary and middle school?
No, not on that slide.
All right. The high schools? So
Yes,
again, go ahead.
I have a question, Ms. Sipes, Kimberly Robinson.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you divide and let us know which of the 60, 100 and those 80 that want to come back face to face from the high schools? Can you tell us how many for the STEM high school?
Sure.
How many for RVEC? Thank you.
No problem. So that 80 face-to-face total at our high school is broken down. RVEC, there has been 30 requests for face-to-face, and at the STEM high school, there has been 50 requests for face-to-face. So that brings our total as a district to 80.
All right.
Thank you.
Then we got something similar. for the high school.
Yes,
So Ms. Snipes,
yes,
basically what I'm looking at here, all of the parents or all of the household or students, however you want to say it, all of the students were contacted for RVEC. It's just
Yes.
elementary school, the middle school, and Weldon High that you were not able, or I'm not saying you per se, but we were
Right.
not able to communicate with those students or parents or the households. But at RVEC, there was 100% input from parents and students.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And so again, going back, that is what we have seen traditionally. Once we look at our attendance numbers for both the elementary, middle, and high school, and this is just a rough count, at RVEC, there's only 7 students who have been inconsistent. The other schools have about, depending on the school, have a range of 20 to 40% of their students that are not engaged.
Wow.
So, I mean, I didn't include that in today's presentation, but we do have that information and have that data broken out as well.
Sure. If you would make sure that the board has that information, you know, simply because we're trying to serve each student collectively and individually within our school district. But when you have, as you said, 20 to 40% of our students that are not engaged in the learning process at this point in time, that is alarming and disturbing at the same time.
And I also will share that a lot of the reasoning, once we are able to get in touch with them, even after we put plans in place, a lot of it is that they have a lot of personal issues going on within their homes that they cannot, you know, without the support of the school and having some offerings of something for their child to go to, then it's just very difficult. And some of the parents who are working, the children are not even in their homes, they're staying with someone else. So they're relying on a family member, a friend, aunt, uncle, you know, to support them in their learning that may not have their best interests at heart. So that is where we are.
I understand there are a lot of facets that go along with it. I mean, we know the internet and, you know, the list goes on. We understand that. But at the same time, you know, as in understanding that we still have a responsibility to each child. And I know it takes them, you know, doing what they can do that we can be of most helpful to them. But at the same time, I think it would just be good for us to have that information if you would.
No problem. Anything else with the high schools? Any other information?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. So going back to the building capacity, are there any questions about the first chart, which should be to the left of you, or if you're looking at it?
Yes, Ms. Knight, I do. With the elementary, you said 15 to 18 students in the classroom, and they would be distant.
We have actually been, I have personally been out to each of those schools with the principals, and we have walked through the buildings. We have completed at least 2 walkthroughs and measured. At this time, the elementary school, all schools are charged to just go ahead and set up their spaces so that when we come back out and do an additional walkthrough, hopefully next week, we'll be able to see it in real life instead of, you know, trying to visually space it. But we have been out with tape measures, measuring from desk to desk, from front to back, 6 feet on each way, each direction, from the front of the classroom where the teacher would be standing to the back. All of that has taken place. And so based off of that, and it varies because of the size of the classroom, it just depends, but yes.
Yeah, I know about the size. That's why I was wondering 15 to 18. Okay.
Yes.
And Ms. Nice, that's with the furniture included in the class, inside the class.
That's with the existing furniture within the classroom. Yes. All right. And so just to highlight, as the facilities survey that was completed last week, it gave that our current facility capacity is 1,722. And I just did the math there for your district enrollment is 742. So currently, as our capacity, the number of students we have to hold within our buildings, we are 980 students under what our current capacity is. And even when we do the 50% facilities capacity, the total capacity at 50% is 864. Currently, our district enrollment is 742, and the difference there again, we are under 122 students. So if all students elected to come into the building, we have enough space in order to provide at least 6 feet social distancing for each of those students. We may have to use some rooms that are not currently in use, but we have the opportunity to do that if it so presented itself. Any other questions on this slide? Okay, so this is what it will look like as far as the building capacity if we had every student offered to come into our buildings and based off of what we currently have surveyed. So again, taking each school individually, the elementary school, we have 259 students enrolled. Those that have requested face-to-face is 86. The building capacity is 165. So based off of the number have already reported that they are requesting face-to-face, we are in compliance based off of the North Carolina Strong Schools guideline to maintain our 6 feet social distancing. And the same is across the board for all of our other schools. So for the middle school, 64 have requested face-to-face, 318 is the capacity. And so we are in compliance that because we're well under that number. The same for the high school, 50 students. The capacity at 50% is 310. So yes, we are in compliance there. And the same goes for RVEC, which is 30 students who have requested, and they can currently house at 50%, 71 students. And even if we looked at the alternating weeks based off of the numbers that have previously requested, if we broke our students down into 2 cohorts, at the elementary school, each cohort will have 43 students.
And that's for the entire school.
And that's for the entire school.
If
So
we did an alternating.
if we did an alternating weeks, that means 1 week, 43 students would be in the building. The other students would be remote while that 1 week is in. And then the other week, the 43 students will come in for that. And the same goes for the middle school, 32 students will be in at one point in time if we did the alternating weeks. The high school, 25 of those, and at RVEC, 15. All right.
Okay.
So as far as the sample schedule, so we have broken out a sample schedule for both a 50% occupancy. If we did in-person learning, as you saw from the numbers, we have the space in order to hold, which is about 260 students, I believe, if my math is remembering correctly, in a building based off of our capacity of 864 across the district. Everybody will be able to attend that wanted to attend based off of our current survey data, 4 days a week, and that Friday will be remote. If we did alternating weeks, which it would be across the district, there will be 115 inside the school buildings, which one building could hold off 115 students if we did the alternating weeks. So the first week they will be in person, the second week they will be remote. And this is just a visual of what that will look like for those students if we did an alternating week. And so here are the various options that we have before us tonight. We have option 1, which is Plan B, face-to-face available for K4 and pre-K. And the suggested start date will be March 22nd for this one, and face-to-face available for 5 through 12. And this suggested start date will be March 29th. And then option 2, the face-to-face will be available K8 and pre-K with a start date of March 22nd. And face-to-face will be available starting on the 29th for 9 through 12. And then the third option, which is the face-to-face for available to K-12 and pre-K students, and they will all start on March 29th with a remote learning option for those particular families.
Hold on, Ms. Snipes, don't go any further.
Okay.
I have a question, Ms. Snipes.
Yes, ma'am.
Which option, 1, 2, or 3, is the one that alternates weeks?
So any within Plan B, because Plan B has a lot of sub-plans within that. So if we select any of the options of Plan B, then we have an opportunity to decide which way we would like to implement Plan B, whether it's the occupancy or whether it is the alternating weeks. So Plan B has the option, has the possibility of doing either or within that.
Got you. Can you bring your slide up a little bit so we can see all of option 3? Is it another line there?
It's not another line, no ma'am.
Okay, okay.
So at this point, this concludes the first part of the presentation. And so we have any questions or discussions at this time?
Can you go back to that last slide again? I wasn't finished.
Oh, no problem. Mm-hmm.
So basically, Ms. Snipes, as you have presented, and Dr. Congleton as well, I think just for clarity, all of what we are planning, or what we're discussing tonight, all of it would be Plan B under the Strong's reentry model. What we're looking at is all Plan B, but we have just broken it up tonight for discussion into the different options. Option 1 with the K through 4, and then option 2 with K through 8 and pre-K, and then breaking them out accordingly. So basically, we could select to go K through 4 with pre-K first, and then March 29th, 5 through 12, or K through 8 starting March 22nd, and then of course 9 through 12 starting March the 29th, and given the option with those rotating weeks, the cohort model, putting portion on 1 week, the next week, and of course option 3 would be all remote for whoever chose to do that. Is that correct?
Option 3 would be face-to-face for all those that will opt into that. And that will start, and that will be K-12 and pre-K, and that will start March 29th.
Right. Okay. All right.
So Ms. Snipes, I see that our numbers are small.
Yes, ma'am.
But my question about that is, have we taken into consideration our students that will be on the bus? I know in the classroom, we're saying that they're only going to be 15 if we do alternating weeks. But when those 15 get on the school bus with other students, are we going to be over our capacity? Well, I guess I shouldn't say capacity, but what the numbers should look like in the COVID era.
Sure. So we have also looked into the transportation. And so based off of what our current numbers are, and it will vary depending on who may be in the same household and the same family, but we will have we will have the bus, because we have 14 buses plus 1 bus that is EC, and depending on the number of students that opt to come in for our students with special needs, that is something that we're currently looking into, and that is some of those decisions may be an IEP team decision. But based off of our transportation routing and those that have indicated thus far, which we will need to get a final update on all those who would opt in and need transportation. But based off of what we have, our preliminary data, we will have enough buses at this time to ensure that we are following what is within Plan B, which is states that 1 person per seat, unless they're within the same family.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Snipes,
Yes.
do you have something else you need to present to us?
No.
Okay. I have a question. Well, I have several questions, but my first one is the planning process. Well, I want to know about the scheduling. Is school still going to start at the same time that they're starting now? How would the scheduling be? Because right now, remote learning starts at different times at different schools. And
So,
if a student is going to remain remote, and you have students that are going from remote to face-to-face, how would that work out?
So at this time, we will go back to what the traditional schedule would have been at the beginning of the year, which would, I think most of the schools start about 7:30 as far as arriving into school, with instruction starting at 8 o'clock. So it will be for some schools right around that same time frame that we're currently operating under. It's just a matter of those students will need to be in school prior to the instructional day start. And most of our schools' instructional time starts at the high school. It was like 7:45. at the middle school and elementary school, I think it was like 8 o'clock, but I haven't looked at that into too much detail, but I believe that's what it was previously.
Okay, and how are the students that are going to remain virtual? How would their schedule look? Would it remain the same, or?
It will remain similar to what they're currently doing, because I think they start at 8 o'clock as well. Thus far, it may change slightly depending on the number of students we have in the building. So, but they will have their asynchronous work, meaning they will have their work that they do online, as well as they will have opportunities to receive that face-to-face based off of the schedule that the in-person learners will be taken in charge of. But it would start at 8 o'clock probably for that group.
And yeah, because what we have to keep in mind is that the teachers would be simultaneously teaching kids that are online and kids that are in the classroom. So the instruction time for both groups would need to start the same, because you have one teacher that have two different modes of instruction that's taking place. And so in order to make it, work out and everybody have equal time, and also to make it possible for the teacher to be able to work with both those groups, it has to be as simultaneous as possible.
Okay, so the time, and I'm just looking, and I have a child that's in school, and his time, it goes from 7:55 in the morning until 9:15 for one class, and then they have a break from 9:15 to 9:30. With those same students that are being serviced face to face, but they have that same schedule. I know you said it would change slightly, but how would it work?
So the virtual students will have a similar schedule. I can't, just depending on the electives, because we're going to try to operate on the normal school day, but they will have the similar schedule in which they're doing now, still those breaks within there. And just note that some of the instructional blocks will be longer for those that are in person, because like say, for example, your reading blocks at the elementary school, they're supposed to be 90 minutes. So we modified that time for those that are remote learning, because we understand the screen time and all of that. So that block will be 90 minutes. So during that time frame, say for example, it's from 8 to 9:30, then the remote students can log in during that time frame from 8 to 9:30. Which that's why I said it may change slightly as far as their times, because then they will have their math block and then their elective times as well. So, but they will still have the opportunity during especially your core instruction, to log in during that time frame throughout the day, which I know for the elementary schools, some of the lower grades have their academics in the morning, and then some of the upper grades have it split between the like the math in the morning and then math reading in the afternoon. So it just depends on that particular schedule and those individual grade levels.
Okay. Are you all including the teachers from across the board at all 4 schools to be included into the planning process? Because they are the ones that's going to be dealing directly with the students. So I want to know, are you all including them in the planning process?
So we have reached out to our principals who were charged with talking and having conversations, and they are also planning with their teachers. So that's how we're getting information, is from our principals. And so I know I have, as far as previously, they have already had discussions, and they're continuing those discussions on what that will look like today, last week, in the beginning of this particular year. So they are all working in tandem to ensure that there is the best possible solution for all students. And in some grade levels, that's why when you see in the report that they are broken down by grade levels, because some of our grade levels who may only have 10 students that are opting in, we can utilize more of those teachers at that grade level. Say, for example, the kindergarten, I think it said 26 students. So that will be across 2 classrooms, and we have 3 teachers. So that means that the third teacher could potentially be online with those other students and having those students and engaging those learners at that time as well. So we are taking it and looking at it individually and personalizing it for each grade level, so that those students that are virtual get the same level of instruction than those that are face-to-face. And so I think one grade level had 11 students at first. We had a couple grade levels that had at least 11 students. So that means that could potentially at the elementary school only take one class. So one teacher could do that face-to-face while the other teacher could do the remote for those other students. And then they can also share those as well.
Okay. Once parents are make the decision on whether to send their child back to school or whether for them to remain at home, are they locked into that decision for the remainder of the school year?
Yes, they will be locked into that decision for the remainder of the school year just because of planning purposes. So, and especially for those, the only option would be if there's any COVID related issues or concerns, then they would need to transition to remote for that individual time. But if they initially opted into face-to-face, then they have the opportunity to come back into the school building. But if those families that opted for remote learning for the remainder of the school year, then that's what they will keep at least to the end of this particular school year.
Ms. Snipes,
Yes,
on that note, have you placed in your schedule a time for parents of the 43% who plan to go back face-to-face or would like to, for them to come in and view the school and the classrooms to see if they feel comfortable, and then make a decision whether they feel comfortable to move forward or to stay remote? Do you have that in your schedule?
So we do. I'm sorry, Ms. Robinson.
Before your start dates of the 27th, 22nd, or the 29th.
Yes, ma'am. So we are not planning on having the actual individual parents come into the building. We're planning on doing some videos of each of the classrooms so they can get a feel of what it will look like for their students once everything gets set up. That's why we asked all of our principals to have their schools to be camera ready by this Friday, March 5th. So next week, when we go out and do our actual walkthroughs, once the decision is made, then we will have that information and be able to walk as if we are a student coming out of the car rider line or a student that's coming off of the bus, so that you can see, a parent can actually, it's like a virtual tour. For, if you lack of a better word, you know how now homes you have virtual tours. So we will be looking and working on those virtual tours before the actual final deadline of when they would need to let us know their final decision. So, but it's kind of, we have it planned, but it's all dependent on what happens this evening on how we implement and how fast we need to rock and roll with that.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
Ms. Snipes, I personally think that the parents need to be able to go inside of the schools to see for themselves. Virtual is fine and dandy, but you're sending your precious cargo to a building and you haven't even been in the building yet to see for yourself. I think that the parents should be able to go in to see for themselves instead of something being virtual, if the student's going to be there.
And I understand, and we can take that into consideration, but the only concern is the COVID restrictions and the limited availability that we have to allow people into our building based off of the strong schools. So if we have that happen and for us to be ready for whenever you guys decide for us to start, for us to be ready and to ensure those buildings are properly sanitized with other outside individuals coming into that building, it's going to take us a lot longer to get them in place before we get everything cleaned up, get the teachers out before we actually have to bring our students in. So that's the only reason why I said we were looking at more of a virtual tour than an actual face-to-face tour.
And someone asked the question, I'm sorry, I have another comment. But someone asked the question earlier about custodians being in the building. And Dr. Congleton, this question is for you. I know that there is money available through the COVID funding. Is there any monies available to hire additional help, not just for custodians, but for the teachers as well?
Well, not at this point, not in terms of additional staff and so forth. Now, we are hoping and expecting and anticipating receiving some additional funding from the federal government because of the COVID situation, but we have not gotten that yet. You know, it would, if it happens, it would come down to the state, then the state would distribute, or make it available to the LEAs. But some of the COVID money and some of the grants, that we have received, they have been very, very specific about, what you can spend the money for. And then they've been in relatively small amounts. So if you start talking about hiring additional teachers and staff and things like that, you get into, really big bucks. And you know, you may get enough money in one grant, for an example, that might cover a partial salary for an additional staff member, you know. But I think that we're going to be in pretty good shape as far as that is concerned, because number one, our numbers are very, very small. And, you know, with the number of folks that are elected to stay virtual, you know, that kind of reduces the need for as many staff members as we would normally have. So, but, you know, to answer your question, we don't have any additional funding at this point in time, but we are anticipating and hoping that some will be coming our way.
Okay.
So, Dr. Congleton.
Yes, sir.
The funds that were sent to our district, the coronavirus, I forgot what it was exactly called. I think we got that money through the CARES Act. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We received a substantial amount of funds. Have we expended all of those funds?
No, I don't think we have expended all of it yet, you know, but, you know, it has to be spread out, and we have a point in time by which it has to be spent. But
by September of this year, correct?
Well, depending upon the grant, but yes, sir, for the most part, September. Yeah, because like the ones that we got, for an example, where we just hired the student support teacher, that money has to be expended by the end of September, and it was temporary funding for a specific purpose. And, you know, we had the option of hiring like a school social worker or counselor or someone that will serve in that type of capacity in terms of providing support to students based upon some of the things that they may have experienced as a result of being at home, as a result of going through all this COVID stuff and that sort of thing. So, but in terms of having funding available that we could just go out and hire some extra teachers, we don't have that, nor the leeway to be able to do that at this point in time.
Well, I concur with what Ms. Hale said. Now, I asked that because, I mean, if parents send their children back to school and more help is needed as far as the sanitation and the cleanliness of our facilities, I think we need to look at those funds that we have received in the CARES Act that you said we have to, you know, kind of spread out, but we need to know what have we spent and how much do we have left. I mean, we may be able to contract an extra custodian, you know, at a school for so much, you know, to carry us out through the school year. I'm not saying that we have that, but if you don't have those hard numbers, I mean, we're talking about March.
We can get that information. I don't have it in my head, obviously.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I think we need to have that.
Look, and in fact, is Ms. Austin out there?
Yeah.
Because she oversees quite a few of those grants. Ask her to step in for a second.
Yeah,
but
before we just knock that in the head and say, you know, it doesn't look likely that we would have that. I think we need to have those numbers because we're talking about
But what I was referring to,
March.
What I was referring to, Reverend Sykes, was in response to hiring additional teachers, not in response to hiring, you know, additional staff that may help with sanitizing or anything that's directly COVID related. So, yeah.
I understand that, you know, about the staff part. If we're gonna break it up, you know, the classes, like Ms. Snipes was saying, one could be doing the virtual part while the other teacher, you know, based upon how many students we have coming in. I understand that. I got that totally. I'm stressing the fact now about having more individuals to help keep things clean and sanitized. So when the students do come back, everybody would feel even more comfortable because we were able to contract 2 more individuals or 3 more individuals to help with the sanitation. That was my concern.
Okay. Ms. Austin, you have anything you want to add?
No, sir, I'm here for any questions. We do with the CARES Act or anything. Ask questions.
Okay, you might want to give just a brief, overview of what we're using the CARES Act money for and what we can use it for and what the cutoff dates are, that sort of thing, just so that the board can get a clearer understanding of where we are with some of this stuff.
Okay, good evening,
Good evening.
to everyone this afternoon. As it relates to the CARES Act, as Dr. Congleton shared earlier, there are several different pots of money that we receive. The largest pot is what we call the PRC 163. And those are the funds that are being used to make sure that we have the masks. Mrs. Snipes and I work very closely. I work very closely with her. Masks, the sanitizer, the cleaning supplies for the schools. We've used it for teachers, computers. We're making sure that our students have one-to-one computers. We have encouraged students damaging computers. So we're really restocking on computers for when we start back that have warranties on them so that they will be fixed without cost to the district and the downtime time for the students will be lessened. We've got Corinthian boards in the schools. So we've kind of hit the technology, the sanitizer and such as that. We're looking at the needs that are developing prior to opening school. A tent at the elementary school. Certain things can be purchased out of 163, but the guidelines are very tight. Other funding that we have tutors that are currently tutoring our students. That's the GEARS Act, where we partner with the North Carolina Education Corps, where we have tutors as well as mentors. That's part of that is coming out of the GEARS Act, and part of it is coming out of the CARES Act, due to the fact that if they're working with teachers, it could not come out of the GEARS Act. The other funding that we have is for what we're kind of using as something such as a counselor at the middle school, and the fund, and basically the middle and all over the district is where they're basically helping out with that. That funding was barely enough to do the salary for that particular position. So each one of the CARES Acts that comes down, they're stipulating what the funds will look like. From a training that I attended this week also, we'll be getting hopefully an opportunity to apply for some funding to help with our McKinney-Vento students. So, they're like specified as to what and how, and even a proportion, because even with the CARES Act, there's a proportion that we can spend in technology, a proportion we can spend here in order to remain in compliance.
Okay.
Dr. Congleton.
Yes.
Looking at the numbers, of course, all of our numbers for our students that will be face-to-face is pretty small.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
only two that I have a question about would be pre-K, which is 26, and our fifth graders that are 22. How many teachers do we have in those two grades?
So just a clarification, the 26 is for the kindergartner.
Kindergarten, I'm sorry.
And yes, and there's 3 teachers within that grade level. We have 3 teachers for the 26 of those students that will opt in. And then what was the other one? I'm sorry.
The other one was 5th grade.
5th grade. Currently, we have 3 teachers at 5th grade as well.
So these students could potentially be, half of them could be with 2 of the teachers, and then there's the possibility of 1 teacher doing all virtual, or have we come to that point yet?
Yes, we have. So the middle school is a little different because they do change classes. So we will be utilizing 2 classrooms, and the teachers will rotate within those 2 classrooms. So because they're teaching different subjects.
So 22 students could potentially be in the same classroom at one time?
No. We're utilizing 2 classrooms. We're splitting those students amongst the 2 classrooms, so 11 and 11.
Okay.
And then the teacher is rotating between those classrooms.
Got it.
Not the students, but the teacher is rotating. And just to go back to something Ms. Hale said earlier, the same will happen like for those elementary school. What the recommendation is at this time is that to limit the movement of all of our students. So they will pretty much be stationary and have breaks throughout the day to remove masks, to still go outside because that's a requirement, especially at the elementary school level, as well as go into the cafeteria to get their food, so that the space in the cafeteria is a lot larger than their classroom. So to ensure that we have the proper ventilation in there. So if they're eating without their mask, things can go away, you know, the stuff can go out in the air as far as their the air droplets. But those students will remain with that class the entire day, and then the special teachers will be filtering in. That's why I was saying that for the virtual learners, it may look different depending on when that special teacher is pushing into a self-contained first grade classroom versus, so that may look different for each of the individual students. So we're fine tuning those particular plans, but we just wanted to make sure that at least those that have, we're trying to limit their movement within the building.
So you're saying that PE and the teacher would come to those two classrooms?
Yeah, so the PE teacher will rotate in those classrooms.
Okay.
And it just depends on the activity. We may move the children to the gym and have them all, because we can spread more in the gym since it's going to be like 11 students. But we're looking at each of those individually so that they can make that particular change based off of the numbers that are going to be coming that particular day of school.
And how do we plan to make sure that our students who have IEPs, they are receiving what they are supposed to get?
Yes, ma'am.
One for 5th grade, they're going to go between the two classes to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students according to their IEP.
Yes, ma'am. And so those that we may have that would like to remain remote, the state has given us the option to do contingency plans. Mm-hmm. So those case managers will be working with the parents and the team to determine if that's if that's necessary based off of the student's need, whether or not we need to do a contingency plan within that student's IEP, which would be a fix to the IEP. It'll be something that is addition to what they already currently have.
But currently, our students who have IEPs, our teachers, our special ed teachers, are they going in and supporting? Are they a part of the virtual lesson now?
They are part of the virtual lesson now.
The same amount of service that they're supposed to get as far as
yes, ma'am. So they are going in as well as having individual lessons with the students. And our related service providers are currently doing remote as far as virtual services as well. So yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I have another question. Thinking about the buses now. Right now, the buses are, well, I think we have like 3 buses from 3 different schools delivering meals. And when schools start, of course, all the buses will probably be on the road. So how would that work for them to go back? I mean, would the same drivers go back and deliver the meals to the ones that are virtual at home, like they're doing now?
So just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. So there's 3 buses currently going out to serve food, which I understand. So when the students come in, yes, we do have a plan, and Ms. Garner has that outline of how many buses are still going to be needed to serve those that are also doing remote. So they will have a similar schedule. It may vary, but their schedule will be similar to help support and get the meals out to those individual families that are still remote.
So I guess the scheduling plan hasn't actually been worked out just yet. As far
as the timing, we're looking at keeping the same time that we currently have, but we may have to make minor adjustments, but that will be communicated with all stakeholders if there are any minor adjustments. Because it will be, and the reason why I say that is because it will be contingent if somebody changes their mind and we need to have alternate routes or double routes, then that gives that bus the opportunity to do that, as well as ensure that they're back in time enough to take those other meals out too and get sanitized and clean before the meals have to go out to those families.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was talking about the teachers and I know that I would just like to have teachers and different people that are actually dealing with situations from now on to be included in making decisions, I'm sorry. Because they're the ones that are dealing directly with the students and the parents and so forth and so on.
Weren't the teachers surveyed, Ms. Hale? Didn't we get some information on how comfortable, Dr. Congleton?
I think that they were some time ago.
Yeah,
but I haven't seen them.
I thought,
I haven't
Yeah.
seen anything.
Yeah, they were surveyed a
Yes,
while. Yeah. They were surveyed, and I will say, because I've been in a lot of their faculty meetings as well as their PLC meetings, they are having these conversations, and I know me personally, I'm taking in the information, sharing it with our team members up here so that we can make the decisions not only for our students, but also for our staff. That's why it's very imperative that, you know, when we're looking at our numbers by grade level, that we're taking to individual account and not be so cumbersome on them. So we are looking into that. We have some very good principals that are advocating for their teachers and ensuring that they have what they need and not to be overwhelmed, because we do understand that this is going to be different if it is decided that we open. So we don't want to put more on them than they already have at this point. So we are definitely understanding of that. We're trying to minimize that to happen for our teachers so that they won't get burned out, they won't get overwhelmed. We have had some opportunities for them to participate in some social emotional learning we have had, if you are not aware. So their well-being is taken care of. We've had some relax and paint ideas. We had some whole district conversations with our teachers specifically to address their concerns and to hear what they have to say so that we could try to come up with solutions in practice.
Yeah, we set up an employee advisory council that we're meeting now on a monthly basis. And we started that last month. We had our first meeting last month, and we have our next meeting coming up. I think it's one day next week. So we meet with the employee advisory council every month. Every school and in every group within the school is represented. And so if they have any concerns and that sort of thing, they have an opportunity to express those concerns, make any suggestions, recommendations or whatever. Our first meeting went very well. And I'm looking forward to the next meeting. Like I said, I think it's scheduled for next week.
All right.
Do we have someone that's going to be taking the temperatures as the students get on the bus or come into the school building? Have we hired anyone for that, or are we going to hire someone for that?
So, okay, so we have the thermometers that are also going to be used, but we are looking into, depending on the number that we have requested for transportation, we will be utilizing at this point, based off of our numbers, we're looking to utilize our other drivers to be the monitors on all of the buses that require for those students, so that their temperature and the symptoms are screened prior to them getting on the bus before they arrive into school. And then they will be re-screened at least by their temperature when they come into the building. So that is our plan, to work on that currently with our existing staff based off of the numbers that are requiring transportation.
And plus we have the thermal.
Yes, and we have the thermal
camera
scanners.
at each
Did I
school.
say that? I'm sorry. We have the thermal scanners at each of our schools, as well as central office. For those of you that have been by central office, you have seen the thermal scanner. You just walk by. It's very quick. It'll tell you. Yeah, and I'm gonna let Mr. Redmond just give you a brief update on that.
Good afternoon or good evening. So with the thermal scanners, as Ms. Knights was explaining it, we have them at the entrances at the schools. We also have it here at the central office, but there's one at every school. Not only do we have the thermal scanner at the school, there is a screen where whoever's sitting at the front desk, they can actually monitor who's coming in, what their temperature is. The thermal scanner will alert them if they're not wearing their mask, if their temperature is too high, just various things to where they won't even necessarily get too far into the building. So that was one thing that we wanted to put in place if we were to bring students back. So we do have that protocol there that will actually stop a student or a parent or anybody from the public that wants to come in. And if their temperature is running too high, or like I said, if they're not running a mask, it will alert the person at the desk, and then they can basically tell them to either exit the building or put their mask back on.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes, ma'am.
do we have those at all 4 schools?
We have them at all 4 schools. And we actually have it here at the central office.
Right, I didn't know
and
if we had one at the college for RVEC or not, but.
We do have one there. Yes, ma'am.
And you said someone is there also to monitor that as well. Is that correct?
Yes, we have designated personnel that are our monitors in addition to our school nurses. They have been trained to be a designated personnel for the symptom screening process. So those individuals have been trained, and then we will give them a refresher training before students arrive back into the building.
All right. Do we have additional questions? Okay, we have received a plethora of information this evening. So at this time, I think we need to possibly or probably see what we are going to do as far as the plans are concerned.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Let me make sure I got something straight here.
Okay.
Okay. Dr. Congdon, you said that once the parents decide face-to-face or virtual of Ms. Snipes, then they are locked into those decisions.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. So with that in mind, and the small number of kids that we have for face-to-face, I make a motion that we go with option 3.
Okay, hold on 1 second so I can make sure I'm looking at option 3. I tried to take a picture of it so when we actually.
It's on the screen too, Reverend Sykes, if you want to look at the screen.
Okay, option 3, face-to-face available. What is that? K through 12 and pre-K starting March 29th with a remote learning option for all. And this would also be on a rotating cohort, correct? I'm asking for clarity.
This is 4 days a week face-to-face.
Because the numbers are so small.
Because of the small numbers. And they can't bounce from one area to the other area. So according to the small numbers that we have face-to-face, this would be for 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday.
Right.
So that 43% will be able to come back, and the others that opted into remote learning, they will continue with the remote learning.
Yes, ma'am.
And everybody be remote on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And board members, we do understand. I just want for clarity in that we're saying the entire 43% would be back at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody understand that, right?
Yes, understand.
All right. That motion has been.
Excuse me, Ms. Snipes, can you put those numbers back up again, please?
Sure. You gotta do it. Go back. Which slide, Ms. Bird Robinson?
This is the one I needed.
Okay.
So basically, at the elementary school, we would have 86 students in. At the middle school, we will have 64 students in.
Mm-hmm.
And at RVEC, we would have 30 students in. And at Weldon High, we would have 50 students in.
Ms. Snipes, excuse me. Has the deadline passed for anyone to change their mind about whether or not they're going to opt in to do face-to-face or virtual? Because
We do have a timeline depending on what the decision is made today. So we do have a tentative timeline that we can share after whatever decision is made today.
What is that tentative guideline?
So
We
the
need to know that tonight.
Yes, so the tentative timeline, if we're going with March 29th, then our families will have until an official notice will go out by the end of this week. The staff and everyone will start working on March the 8th. 4 days a week, all staff will be brought into the building at least 4 days. The last day for parents to be able to make that decision will be on March the 12th. And all transportation requests, final transportation requests will be due March 12th. And then we will have all that next week to prepare and get everybody in order for everyone to start by the 29th.
So basically, is this information going to be mailed?
Go to
Or is it going to be emailed? How is it going to be communicated with the parents? Because if you're gonna mail it, it probably won't go out until Friday. They won't get it until Tuesday, and then they have until Friday of the next week to get it back, correct?
That's correct. So what we have our social media blast, our connect, that's not called ConnectNet, student emails. We are going to send it out to the masses through all of our platforms in which we do have available to us. Our teachers, they are still continually to call in. They're seeing their students every day. They will continue to see those students and double check with them. We have had just some parents through the conversation, through their instruction, some parents to change their minds already. So we are taking those, and those numbers are also reflected within tonight's presentation.
Okay.
What about those families, the 20 to 40% that's not engaged, those families?
The 20% that are not engaged, we're currently working on some creative ways to get them involved. And if those families, if they are one of the 20% and they see a bus rolling by, because we do understand once buses start going out, people start showing up. So once the buses are out, they're not going to be allowed to get on the bus because we have strict protocols for students to get on the bus. Every bus will have an attendance roster, and only those students that are initially on that roster will be allowed on the bus. Their parent will have to call the school, and from that point, we will work with each individual family.
Ms. Snipes, can you have something on the bus for them to give to children that may come to the bus?
Sure.
Who are not on the list, so they can take it back to mama or daddy or grandmama or auntie, so they can have the number ready and know what the guidelines are and everything. And also, I would like to receive a copy of your entire presentation.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we would definitely do that. That's a great suggestion I hadn't even thought about. So I do thank you, Ms. Robinson, for that information. And we would definitely have something available for those drivers.
Ms. Snipes. Ms. Snipes.
Yes, sir.
Please make sure the entire board receives that and that handout that would be going out. Students come to the buses. Please make sure that information is relayed to the entire board, Dr. Congleton and Ms. Snipes, if you would.
Not a problem. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we can do that. Yeah.
And Dr. Congleton, did you have something else?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say that if the board decides to bring everybody back or to start all the schools on March the 29th, as opposed to starting some on the 22nd and the 29th, then I feel comfortable in perhaps changing the time or moving the time back for staff to actually be in the buildings 4 days a week. Right now, we are saying March 8th, which is actually Monday, I think it is. But if we're going to if the board votes to bring everybody back, all the students back on the 29th, I feel comfortable in moving that date to the next week in terms of when we'll be requiring all teachers to come back to the building and moving that to the 15th. And that still gives them a couple of weeks, to get everything structured and organized before any students start coming back into the building.
Okay.
I like that Dr. Congleton, I do like that recommendation because with us coming back on the same day, it will cut down on confusion
Right,
with
yes, ma'am.
families, because many of our families have children at every level,
That's
you know,
correct.
at every school.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am, that's correct. So
Okay.
that's why we will commit to doing if the board votes to approve the March 29th date. Then we would say, okay, well, teachers, right now they're in the buildings, as you all know, on an alternating basis, 2 days a week.
Right.
But rather than saying, you know, today, Wednesday, tomorrow is Thursday, you got to start back on Monday the 8th. I feel comfortable in saying that then you start back on Monday the 15th to be in the building 4 days a week so you can begin to prepare for the kids that would be coming 2 weeks later. I think that would be ample time.
Dr. Congleton?
Yes, ma'am.
I want us to think about this. If we are going to we're going to move it back. You're saying, well, that's what you're proposing, that we move it back. Are we going to continue with those 2 days?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Continue like it is now, but instead of them coming back 4 days on starting the 8th, they would just come back 4 days starting the 15th. But up till then, we will continue as we are doing.
Okay.
If
All
the
right.
29th is approved as start time for everybody.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Williams, I did not forget your motion. Of course, it would have died now, but do you still offer your motion, option 3?
Yes,
With-
sir.
Second.
With the understanding, board. Hold on, board members. If Ms. Kimberly Robinson seconded the motion, I just want to insert, if you would accept this, Mr. Williams, with the recommendation that Dr. Congleton just stated, the full staff coming back on the 15th.
Okay, I'll amend it then to option 3 with the staff coming back on the 15th, and they'll continue alternating days until that time.
Yes, sir.
All right. And Ms. K. Robinson, do you accept that with your second?
Agreed.
All right. Thank you so much. You've heard the motion stated that we would move forward with K through 12 and pre-K students starting March the 29th with the face-to-face learning, and then those that want to remain remote can do so with the understanding that the staff would come in March the 15th. You've heard that motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion, would you use your voice vote now? Mrs. K.A. Robinson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hale? Ms. Hale? Ms. Hale, are you there?
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Bird Robinson?
Aye.
Ms. Jenkins?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And O.D. Sykes, aye. Let the record reflect, Ms. Kitty, it was a 6-1 vote in favor of that. Also, please, for those parents and stakeholders in our community and staff as well, please understand this was simply a decision to put something in person in place. This does not mean that you have to send your child to school. If you desire to remain virtually, you can do so. This is not us forcing you to do in person or virtual. You have a choice. What we agreed to tonight is to give you a choice for in-person learning. That's all this was. Because I want to say this, this message needs to be relayed accurately. So Dr. Congleton, if you would, you and Mrs. Terry Austin, or whoever you deem necessary, to make sure this is relayed to our stakeholders and parents and our staff members, our entire district, so we can all be saying the same language, because, you know, people have a choice.
Absolutely.
Chairman Sykes, I do have a
Yes.
request. I would like
Yes.
to request, as you, Ms. Snipes, when you send us your PowerPoint presentation and all the other things that we requested, I would also like a list of everything that you have provided for each teacher that will have students in their classrooms. And also, as you move forward with your planning, keep the board abreast of the schedules and the busing schedules, so we will not be in the dark on any of the matters that's going on in our system. So we'll be aware of what point you are and how things are going and what is going on. Thank you.
And please keep in mind also, board members, when our students return on March the 29th, we do have a little annual leave time that following week. So we will be able to see that first week. Dr. Congleton will make us aware of how things are going.
Yes.
Before those annual leave days take place. So he will communicate that with us, that to us as well. I have already asked him to do that, if he could at least communicate with us twice that week when the students come back, to let us know how things are going.
No problem. Be happy to do that.
And can I say something right quick, Reverend Chair Sykes?
Yes, go right ahead.
So I just wanted to also, because part of this process, whenever we bring students back, we have to publicize our dashboard. So that information, I will work with Mr. Brevan, and that will be available on our website, and that's our COVID dashboard. So just wanted to also let you know that that information will now be accessible online once our students start coming back.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Williams and seconded by Ms. Tiffany Hale, that we adjourn our meeting for tonight. You've heard that motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, would you let it be known now by your voice vote? And I'm gonna get this one all together. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right. Any opposers, nay? Ayes have it, so ordered. Board members, thank you so much for your time and your comments tonight. I think we have strived to do the best we can under the circumstances, and just thank all of you so much for what we're